Hey folks, it's Frithgar here, how you doing? Welcome back to Farming Simulator 19 here on Boulder Canyon. I'm just going to drag this little plow up along the edge of the field right here, just so that we can get this first little bit along here plowed up and done, and then we can set the hired help going again, I'm hoping. If I put that one going in a dead straight line down through there, I'm going to leave the hired help going on that exact course, and I'm hoping that it will go all the way. You have not completed anything at all. No, you haven't. You haven't completed anything. I'm hoping the hired help will just keep going. Go right down to the end, we'll turn around, and then we'll go all the way back up to that end as well, and just keep it going in a nice, straight, tidy line all the way through without us having to worry about it. Next on our list, we've got this one back here that we need to unload, but we're not going to do that at the moment. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go up here and we're going to finish all of the baling. We get the last of the baling done. So I'm going to do these little short bits over here, which is just a quick run up and down with the baler that hasn't been raked. And yes, we could go and get the rake and we could do it the old-fashioned way, but let's be honest, by the time we get the baler up here, we'll have finished doing this, so we may as well just do it like this. And yes, I'm turning a little bit too sharp on myself as well, which I shouldn't do. We don't want to damage that PTO shaft in there, but I think it'll probably be alright just for this. And we'll really be able to see the full width of this baler working now. And this is what I like about this baler. It is a little bit wider than is 100% realistic on it, but it's definitely better than using the ones that are slightly narrower than would be realistic, especially as when windrows are left behind in the game, it's something, you know, that they do get sort of stuck out a little bit to the sides, and so you're always going to end up with like little bits being left behind. I know, I talk about this a lot. It's a pet hate of mine. I really don't like the bits being left behind. Right, we'll bring you on round over here. And up you go, up through that one. So we've got this one last long run all the way down across the field. We will then have just those 6 runs left over there, and then there's another little bit down in the bottom corner of the field down there that we don't want to forget about. And when we've done that, we can swap this tractor over. We might even go and put, no, just wondering if we should put this one on the plow. I don't think we will, actually. We'll leave the one on the plow that's on the plow right now. He's gone up beside the stone. I just want to go and check and see how it's getting on with it. And he's doing a great job. He's actually doing a really great job. He's gone all the way past the stone. He's come right up to this end of the field. I think he's also going to be okay with coming out and turning round as well without getting hung up on the great big stone up there. So he should be fine to go and do the whole field, which is absolutely fan-schmastic. So we can let him carry on doing what he's doing. We can finish this bit. We'll use this tractor to gather up all of the bales. We'll drag the trailer up here and gather all of these bales, and we will go and store them down where we've got, if we can see way over in the distance, behind the sheep and pig pens over there, where we've got all of our other bales. That's where we'll go and put all of these hay bales as well. And we'll just keep in mind that, yes, we don't actually have a shed for them. So what we'll be doing is we'll be doing the same as we've done with the straw that's over there. We put a tarpaulin over them. No, you can't physically see the tarpaulin, but never fear, it is there. We're not going to go to all the trouble of making this hay and then leave it out in the field without any kind of covering. Now, if it was round bales, we could just line them up along the side of the field, or line them up down there, and they would actually be fine. You would be able to just leave them there without having to put a cover on them. It does rot away, or it does, like, spoil the outside couple of inches of the bale, but not very much. It only does it a little, it's only a couple of inches. And if you haven't got storage, if you don't have a barn in which to store your hay, that's the beauty of round bales. It really is. It's a wonderful thing. It's that the round bale is a wonderful thing, in that it is a mini haystack, and it's a properly covered haystack that you can store outside. And I had people commenting last week when I mentioned this about the round bales, saying that they go and they will make hay in their fields, and they will just leave the bales where they sit in the field. They don't even move them off to the sides of the field, so that throughout the winter the animals can pick at the, like they use fencing and they let the animals into little bit by little bit as they sort of work their way across the field, kind of like you do with fresh grass with electric fencing. And then they've got new bales that they can get at as they work through the winter, as they sort of travel across the fields. Now, I'm assuming that in a situation like that, you don't have a particularly high amount of rainfall, especially through the winter. I mean, I'm assuming in the winter you've probably got more snow than you have anything else, and more freezing conditions, which would cause the ground to be quite hard, so you don't have the cattle poaching up the ground and making just a massive amount of mud everywhere. In order for that to work. But it did strike me as quite an interesting thing. I've heard before of plenty of farmers making round bales and then moving them off to the side of the field and feeding them from there, but I'd not heard before of the bales just being left where they lie as they come out of the round baler, and then feeding the bales in the field to the cattle, sort of by allowance of an electric fence. Just let them into the field bit by bit, so they're not picking at all of the bales all at once, so they don't like open up the bales a bit and then all of the bales are then spoiled for the rest of the winter. They gain access to a couple of bales each day, or every few days, and they just work their way through the fields where the hay was made in the summer. I think it's a really cool idea if the cattle can stay out through the winter. I know some places where cattle can stay out through the winter without too much trouble. I know other places where you would never have a hope. Like there are a few places in Cornwall where you could keep here in the UK, right down in the southwest of the UK in Cornwall. There are a few places here where cattle can be kept outside through the winter, but most of the time, no, cattle are moved in the winter. Now, on the moorlands, on the moors, cattle are left out through the winter, and for the most part, they stay reasonably comfortable and dry by the look of it. There are some areas that get quite boggy during the winter, but the cattle are pretty good at moving around, and because they don't stay in one place all the time, it doesn't tend to make a lot of mud. But the moors are very big. Right? There's a lot of land that they can roam across. So I'm assuming that maybe this whole field, the bales just left where they lie in the field idea, maybe it's something like our moors, where it's quite a large area of land that is able to be used. I mean, the only difference being that in order to allow them access to only a few bales at a time, some kind of fencing system would have to be used, surely. Or the bales would have to be moved and collected up and so on and so forth. So I'm not quite sure how it works, but I do remember thinking when I first read it, that seems like a really good idea. I think that is actually quite cool. And we have now completed our baling. I'm going to go and get that tiny little bit up there. I'll just lift the baler up a second, or the infeed of the baler at least, the pickup reel. And we will come round over and grab that little bit right there. And we are done. Right, so we'll stop the baler and we will do that. Now, I believe that there are new balers these days that do that automatically. Right, they've got a ram inside that has got little spikes that come up, and it ejects the bales automatically using a ram. That would be the ram right there. Can you see it there? There's a little ram right there. That actually physically pushes those bales out, and these little bits right here, those teeth, they lift up, they dig into the bottom of the bale, and they eject the bale from the chamber. The older versions of these big balers had no such luxury. If you wanted the bales to come out of the baler, you had to wind the pressure off, all the way off, and then you had to get a big iron bar, a big spike, jam it into the bale and lever the thing out. It was hard work, and you didn't do it very much. But yes, I have done that. That is one of the things that I can tick off my list of tasks completed. And it's hard going. It is actually quite hard work to get that done. I think we will just hose the baler off. We've got all of these machines right here. So we'll hose the baler off and then we can stuff it back in the shed. Because otherwise, all of our machinery is just going to be left scattered around the yard. So we can do a quick bit of hosing off. We've got our plough still working in the field over there. He's doing a great job. So we'll hose the mowers off. And then we'll hose off the baler as well. We can clean the tractor as well while we're at it. And everything will be nice and shiny for when we go and get these bales. We can bring those back. They will go over there behind the sheep shed. Line them up in the fields. We'll put a few of them into the feed mixer in the middle of the yard. We won't put loads in there, but we will put some in there. And clean off that front weight on the front there. Most of the bales we will go and stick out the back. I might see if I can put one into the sheep pen. Straight off no, I won't do that yet, because the sheep pen's got that huge great big pile of grass in front of it, and I want to clean that up first. And if I go and put a bale in there, I'm not going to have any room for putting the grass in. As we have now finished doing all the baling, we can put our timescale back to 5 times speed. So we're ticking along a little bit faster with our timescale, which means that we can't be hanging around too much. That more accurately represents the way that time tends to slip through your fingers when you really don't need it to. And it just, yeah, it's just a whole lot faster if you find that you need a lot of time to do something. Generally time does seem to slip away a little bit quicker than it would otherwise, and you don't have that time, right? It doesn't seem to matter how much time you think you need, you're always going to run out. That's always seems to be the case. You always seem to run out of time no matter what you're trying to do. I'm looking at that quantity of hay and straw and stuff that we've got in that mixed feeder there. I don't think we need any going in there. That combine is right in the way, but I'm hoping I can just maneuver in round it. This one, if I'm a little bit careful. I'm going to need to get that cultivator out of that shed there. We'll have to get that one out. Get that one out with the other tractor, because this one's got these big extra wheels on. We're not going to have room to be able to back into the shed with this. So I bring you up to about there, and then we'll unhitch. We won't go back any further. We're not going to risk it. We'll end up damaging these tires. We go and get our trailer. So 3 bales of straw right there. I left the straw blower up the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drive this trailer past the straw blower up there, and I'm going to dump these 3 bales into the straw blower, so they're ready for the to bed down the cattle with. Right, we'll put you into there, and then I will load those 3 on there. We stop the loading, and I think I want to put it that side, actually. So the bales will unload the same side as they are on the trailer. Does the same pattern that they are on the trailer. So we got to put the far side into the straw blower over there, and it should dump those bales straight in. Yes, it's auto load. Yes, it's cheating. No, I don't care. I'm quite happy to use a little bit of cheating auto load in here from time to time. I've explained this many times. I don't feel that it's particularly cheaty. It's just expediency. That's all it is. Now, is this going to work? Oh, nice. Look at that. That was absolutely perfect. It tried to put it inside the 3 bales that were already in there, and then just decided it didn't like that and shoved it upwards. But it worked. It did it beautifully. It did absolutely beautifully. Now, we go and gather up the bales from up in the field, and then once we've got the bales, we bring them back down here. We unload them in the yard, around the back of the pens over there. And from that point, we can then, well, I think we'll get that new fertilizer spreader, and we will start putting some fertilizer on the field over here. I'm going to go up the hill over here, and we're going to start by loading the bales sort of around here, and then more along the top, I guess. We'll take some of those, because when we've reached the point where we've got a full trailer, we need to be somewhere that's reasonably level. At the moment, we're just kind of, technically I'm using an autoloader, so I'm supposed to be on 30 times speed to use the autoloader. should, when we reach the, technically at the moment what we're doing is we're representing a tractor and loader, or, well, we've got a tractor and loader here, so we're representing our tractor and loader working on the hill, going and grabbing bales and then bringing them up the hill towards where the trailer is sitting on more level ground, and then loading the bales onto that trailer. So once we've done that bit, once we've got them all up there, then this trailer, like the finishing point when we when we rope down the load and tie all of the bales into position, that needs to be on level ground where the trailer would have been when we were loading. The only time that you wouldn't have it on level ground, if you've got it on a bit of a slope, I've never loaded with the trailer going across a slope. Never ever loaded with a trailer going across a slope, but I have had a trailer pointing straight up and down a slope. So I have had it like this. I have loaded a trailer like that, going straight up and down, so you're moving in. It does mean that when you come in and you're lifting your loader up, you are actually lifting your loader up whilst on the side of a hill. It is not a particularly safe thing to do. You do need to be extremely careful doing such a maneuver. Lifting a loader up whilst on the side of a hill is basically just increasing your chance of toppling your vehicle over exponentially. So you do have to be really, really careful doing that. It's still possible to do it. You've just got to be really careful, and you've got to know what you're doing. You've got to be conscious at all times of the fact that you are on the side of a hill bringing your bales in, and so you just got to move slowly and sensibly. You keep the bales down low to the ground as you move in towards it, and then you lift them up, put them onto the trailer at the last minute. Now, I'm going to say that I said that I'd never loaded a trailer that's hanging sideways on the hill. That's not true. I have done it, although I do it sort of more on I've done it on a gentle slope. But generally, if it's on a steep, I mean, I try to avoid doing any loading of any kind on a steeper slope. But yeah, if it is got to be on a steeper slope, I guess really it sort of depends on the person who's doing the loading, what you'd really prefer, because either way is dangerous and is prone to having an accident happen. If you've got the trailer on its, leaning across the side of the hill, you definitely want to be loading the top side of the trailer first, so you're coming down the hill into the trailer and putting the bales on there first. Or you actually, if I am loading on the side of a hill, I would definitely approach from the bottom side of the hill, and then I load the far side first. If possible. It's not always possible to do that, but it's much easier to approach from the lower side of the hill than it is the top side of the hill. I've thought about this now, and my blanket, I've never loaded a trailer on the side of a hill. That's simply not true. I've done it loads of times, because I remember now that keep in mind it was several years ago. I have actually done that quite a bit. I have loaded a trailer that has been sat sideways on a hill, and I always load from the lower side of the hill, pushing to the far side of the trailer when I was loading. But I would prefer loading a trailer that the trailer itself is pointing up and down the hill, and then I'm doing my loader work going in sideways, but only if I'm not loading the trailer particularly high. If I've got to load the trailer high, then I would find a way to have both of them on level ground. I don't want to be lifting a loader arm high up into the air on the side of a hill. That's asking for trouble. Same as loading a trailer. If you're loading a trailer that is parked sideways on a hill and you're loading it up quite high, that's asking for trouble as well. You're going to pull the trailer over. You try and take your grab out of the bales, you try and take your spike out of the bales, and over the trailer will come with you. Either way is going to present great difficulty, so it's always better to try and have your trailer somewhere level. If you've got the trailer level, then you can't really go wrong with it. Right, I want to do that, and then I want to move it over there, and I want to unload it there like that. So there is our first load. So yes, my initial statement, I've never loaded a trailer that is parked sideways on a hill, that's not entirely true. I have. I just never loaded a trailer up very high when it's parked sideways across a hill. And if it's on a more gentle slope, I would usually try to have the trailer park sideways on the gentle slope, and then I would approach it from the lower side, because it just gives me a little bit more stability. And if it's on a gentle slope, I don't really have to worry about the trailer tipping over. If it is going to be on slightly steeper ground, this I would say would be too steep. I wouldn't want to load it on here, but if I was loading it on here, I would do it with the trailer pointing up and down the hill and me with the loader going sideways, and I would only stack it 2 bales high. If that. If the ground I felt was too steep to safely be able to lift the loader up with 2 bales just to a low trailer like that, then I wouldn't want to load the trailer either way. I would take the bales and I would carry them manually with the loader to the top of the hill or the bottom of the hill and load the trailer there. I would not want to load the trailer while it was on the hill if I felt that it was too steep to be able to load sideways going up. So that particular hill there, I wouldn't want to load that. I wouldn't want to load on the side of that hill. The trailer here, now this bit over here, this is a bit more of a conundrum, because what you've got is you've got a steep field coming down like this, and then right at the very bottom it does start to ease ever so slightly, but it is still on a slope. However, ordinarily, just with this field as it is, I would take the bales with the loader and I would take them up and I would load them onto a trailer at the top of the hill. That would just be the safe way to do it. It would, you're far less likely to have an accident. But if you had a fence that was going halfway along that field there, so that stopped you from doing that, this is slightly more level than the top of the field. I would probably want them to do it here. I would only load the trailer 1 or 2. I would want to do it only 2 bales high, and then we would move them off the hill, because I'd have to come down the hill approaching that trailer in order to load, and that is an extremely difficult maneuver to do with a loader when you're trying to load a trailer. It's extremely difficult coming down a hill with bales on your front loader trying to load up your machine, trying to load up your trailer. And that's just asking for trouble. Trying to load down a hill does get it is dangerous. If you're doing it with more than 1 bale at a time, especially, is where it starts to get dangerous, because your tractor is not very well balanced. It's very prone to slipping, and so if you're coming down, the only thing that's going to stop you is having to apply the brakes. And when you're working, especially in a hay field, the grass that has just been cut underfoot under your wheels it can be quite slippery. And because it's quite slippery, you go and press the brakes, you are prone to sliding around a little bit. So if you're approaching a trailer that has got a few bales on it with more bales, and you need to press the brakes before you can stop in order to be able to put the bales down onto the trailer, something could very, very easily go horribly wrong. And that is where you could have some major accidents. So I would approach such a situation with extreme caution, and I would be extremely careful about doing such a thing. I mean, sometimes you don't have any choice. Sometimes you do have to do things like that, and it is extremely difficult to do, but you do what you got to do. You kind of make sure that it can happen, and you do what you got to do. Now I'm going to try and unload these here. We've had it on 30 times speed the whole time so far, even going and unloading, so I won't bother for the last 2 bales. I'm going to see what happens if I unload here, see if we can strap it down where it's pointing down the hill a little bit. So we will unload onto the trailer, and you see him leaned over there because he's not pointing straight down the hill, so he's trying to tip over sideways a little bit. Now we've got to very, very slowly make our way down this hill. Now you can see me in the game I'm using brakes, because engine braking doesn't work very well in this game. But coming down here, I would put it in a very, very low gear, and I would be using engine braking. I would want my trailer to have trailer brakes, especially a trailer like this one with the turntable on it. I would definitely be wanting trailer brakes on there, but that one's got a tank underneath it there, so it's a strong indication that it does indeed have trailer brakes. And you would want the trailer brakes to be coming on before the tractor brakes. Now usually they do. Trailer brakes do engage slightly before the actual tractor brakes themselves come on, and that's a safety precaution, because if your tractor brakes first and then your trailer brakes, your trailer for a moment doesn't have any braking force applied whatsoever, so it's pushing against the tractor, and that's going to cause some serious problems with the, especially with a trailer like this, with the weight of that trailer all in on that tractor, which is going to cause wheel slip. If the back wheels are the ones that start braking first, that is the safest way to be able to do it. So that is why usually trailer brakes will engage slightly before tractor brakes do, or at least they should. Sometimes it doesn't always work perfectly, but especially with newer tractors, it almost always does. But I think even the older tractors, I don't remember ever having gotten into any trouble because a trailer the brakes weren't working properly with the trailer, and they weren't engaging properly as they should. I don't remember ever coming into any kind of issues with that being the cause. I mean, I have driven around so fast with a grain trailer that and was using the brakes quite aggressively. And mind you, the grain trailer was quite a bit too big for the tractor I was using. But I did manage to boil the brake fluid, and the brakes, trust me, when your brake fluid reaches boiling point, it's not very effective in actually stopping your tractor and trailer. It definitely loses effectiveness when you've boiled your brake fluid inside the brake lines. It's something that the mechanic who worked on the farm that I was working on at the time, he came. I said that the brakes aren't working properly. They're really, really juddering. I think I've told you all this before. Really, really juddering, and they just weren't working properly. I was having some serious issues with these brakes, and they absolutely were not doing what they should have been doing. And so I got on the blower, and I got the mechanic out, and he came and had a look, and I explained what was going on. He said, well, that's really weird. It sounds like maybe you got a bit of air in the system or something like that. But he thought it sounded a bit strange. So he undid he said, I think you've got air in here somehow, but he wasn't sure how, so he was going to have to like bleed the system, and he was going to have to check everything for air and all the rest. So he got in underneath the tractor, and he started undoing the little plug for the brake lines, and it squirted boiling brake fluid out over his hands. He didn't have squeal when it hit his hands, burned his hand a little bit. Fortunately, only a little bit. It sprinkled him a little bit, and he could feel it was quite hot anyway, so he already had his hands back. Just because, you know, it had just been used and he was expecting it to be hot. He wasn't expecting it to be as hot as it was, though, and he wasn't expecting it to squirt out with the pressure that it did because of the high temperature that the oil had reached. So, yeah, it did it back up again, and then we sat and we got our flasks out, and we sat and we had a cup of coffee and a chat for 30 minutes together, and then I carried on my way, and he recommended that maybe I go a little bit more slowly in future compared to what I had been doing. He also got on the blower to the manager of the estate that I worked on and berated him at length for driving the workforce to go as fast as they possibly could, because I was going as fast as I possibly could, and I was doing what I should have been doing. And the manager had already praised me over the radio for keeping up a good pace and keeping up with the combines. So the mechanic got onto the radio to him and gave him a bit of grief over the radio for doing that. Okay, we've wrapped ourselves around a signpost over here. He gave him a bit of grief on the radio for doing that, for encouraging said driving like that, because he said that it was encouraging dangerous driving, and that's what had caused me to have to stop for 30 minutes. And so from that point on, I was told that I had a maximum speed limit that I was not allowed to exceed. And I had to stay within the confines of that speed limit from that point on. I was a bit annoyed about that, because I'd gotten really good at being able to drive. We had a long way to go. It was about an hour and 20-minute round trip from the combine back to the yard with the grain trailer, and then back out to the field again. So, and a lot of that was going across other fields because of where we were working on the estate that I worked on. And so a lot of it was driving across fields, and I had every single rough patch and smooth patch mapped out in my mind. I knew where I could put the pedal to the metal and I could absolutely cane it down across those fields. And I really did. I was absolutely flying. And then I would anchor up nice and hard just for the bits where I knew it would get a bit bouncy, because if I didn't... I was driving a tractor. It was one of these tractors, right? It was one of these tractors right here. So let's just hop into the tractor a minute. I am absolutely belting it down across the fields. I am working those gear sticks like a professional race driver as I am tearing down across those fields. And there's a few steep hills in there as well, so I'm hammering through the ranges as well and caning it up the hills with the smoke bellowing. And I was having a fine time. I didn't like this tractor at the best of times, but this particular couple of days going along those long distances and a lot of it being in fields, I was at least giving the tractor everything she could produce. I was absolutely pushing everything that tractor could push out and doing my best to keep it going. And so I was kind of enjoying that, and then I would get onto a bit of a straight where I knew that it was nice and smooth down across the field where there'd been tram lines, and it would be pedal to the metal into top gear, and we would go flying down through. And then when I'm coming up to the tram lines that we got to cross to get off the end of the field, then brakes is coming on hard. Trailer brakes are engaging first, so they're slowing me down. I was really relying on those brakes, because if I didn't, my head was going up. And you see this pattern that we got up here? That is very reminiscent of the actual pattern on the roof of the tractor that I was in. And it looks like it's cushioned up there. Trust me, it's not cushioned very much. Right? Because if you go over the bumps too hard, you bounce up and you wallop your head on the roof. And that is a very, very thin cushion over some hard steel. It hurts. It really, really hurts. So it was in my best interest to slow that tractor down as rapidly as I possibly could, which is what I would do. And then I would avoid my head smacking itself on the roof of the tractor. I think I would actually hit my head on the handle of the skylight, because I did have that one open. It didn't open all the way, it opened a little bit, and then you get a little bit of air could sort of circulate in through like that. The air conditioning was so poor in his tractor, I just had windows open and didn't worry about the air conditioning. And yeah, so I was driving. I was a Formula 1 racer. I was literally a Formula 1 racer in an old Deutz Fahr tractor, an air-cooled engine. There was no water cooling on the engine. It was air-cooled engine like this one. And I was absolutely flying. And then I got a speed restriction put on me. I got told I was going too fast, and I had to be speed restricted, and I was not allowed to go above set miles an hour. May not necessarily have completely complied with that, but I did start to recognize when the brake fluid was getting a bit warm and getting that whole juddery feeling, and so then I would slow down a little bit and just allow the brakes to cool a bit before I started to just tweak the speeds up a little bit more afterwards again. Right, we are going to leave it there. I won't skip the night for this episode. We have run out of time. The tractor can keep going over there, and then in the morning, in our next episode, beginning of next week, we will have that tractor over there. We'll put it onto that spreader there. We will spread fertilizer on that field up there, which won't take very long, I don't think. It's got 24 meters spread on it, while that one just finishes up doing the plowing. When the plowing has finished in there, we can then go and start putting lime and fertilizer on that field. Then we will cultivate, and then we will plant some seeds. But that is all next week. If you enjoyed the episode, then please hit down below and give us a like. And if you really enjoyed it, then please tell your friends all about me. Get them to go and watch as well. That would be awesome. And until next time, thank you very much for watching. This is Frithgar. Goodbye, and see you later.